Hello again, this is Deb and welcome back to our Word 2019 course. We're all the way down to the module that relates to the autocorrect options. And autocorrect is a feature again that you'll find across all of the Microsoft applications that allows you to change the way words are spelt or the way words are displayed in your document. And there are already a number of autocorrect options set for you. So let me show you what I mean by that. So on the screen, I have a blank document. Again, it's just called document 1 because I haven't saved it. Now I'm going to zoom in very slightly using my zoom control so you can see this a bit better. Now, for example, if I wanted to spell out the word the or the, but I spelt it slightly wrong, so if I type in HTE, when I press the space bar, you'll see that it automatically corrects to the word the. The same if I was to type in the word can incorrectly. So if I type in ACN and press space, Word recognizes that I'm probably trying to spell the word can, I've just spelt it wrong, and it automatically changes it for me. That is an autocorrect feature. So it will notice or recognize commonly used words that have been misspelt and correct them for you, which is an extremely useful feature. It will also help with other things. So for example, things like fractions. So if I was typing half, so if I type 1, and I use the slash and then 2, as soon as I press the space bar, it converts it to that fraction. And the same if I was typing a quarter, hit space bar, and there I get my fraction. So again, those are using the autocorrect feature in Word. Another example would be ordinals. So you might come across ordinals in things like dates. So if I was saying the 1st of August, for example, if I type in 1 ST and hit the space bar, it makes that ST superscript. So it puts it into the correct format for a particular date. The same with second, and I could carry on going through those ordinals. Another example would be something like hyperlinks. So if I was to type in a website address, so let's just say www.microsoft.com and hit enter, it's going to pick up that website and it's going to underline it. So this is now a hyperlink. And as I hover over it, you can see that if I hold down my control key and click my mouse, it's going to take me to that website. So again, that's utilizing the autocorrect options. Now I'm going to delete everything that I've put in here. So I'm going to use Control A to select all. We used that in an earlier module. And I'm going to hit my delete key just to take me back to a blank document. I want to show you a couple of other features of autocorrect as well. And this is quite a cute little one if you've never come across this before. If I type in 3 dashes, so if I say dash, 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 and hit the enter key, it gives me a continuous solid line. And what's cool about this is that I can go up and I can type on the line if I want to. So it's a bit like being back at school, having those ruled lines running across your page. So that's quite nice as well. So remember 3 dashes and enter, and you'll get yourself a solid line. I'm going to do Control A again to select all and delete. Now if I do that again, but this time when I'm doing my dashes, hold down my Shift key. So I'm going to do 3 dashes and hit enter. I get a solid bold line. So I just incorporated the Shift in order to get that. Again, there's a few of these. If I do Shift and 3 asterisks and press enter, I get a dotted line. And if I do Shift and 3 pound symbols and press enter, I get a different style line again. So there's lots of those lurking around in autocorrect, and you may not be aware of them. I wasn't for a very long time, and sometimes they can be quite useful if you're looking to do something really quickly. And they are really good examples of how that autocorrect is built into Word and how it works. Now again, I'm going to select all, Control A, and I'm going to hit my delete key just to get rid of everything. Now, if you want to go in and take a look at how autocorrect is set up and you can see what autocorrect options you have set, you can find those underneath the File tab, so in the Backstage area. And if you jump all the way down to Options at the bottom and go into the proofing section, you'll see at the top here you have autocorrect options. So it says change how Word corrects and formats text as you type. So I'm going to select autocorrect options. And this is where we have all of those autocorrect options stored. And there are some different choices that we can make at the top. By default, they're all selected. So I'm currently showing autocorrect options button. I can correct 2 initial capitals. I can capitalize the first letter of sentences, first letter of table cells, the names of the days, so on and so forth. So these are all set, which means that yes, I want Word to do that. So if I'm typing the word Monday, I want it to correct. If I haven't typed a capital, I want it to correct it to a capital. So these are some of the basic options, and I like to have all of those set. You can also see in the table below some other autocorrect options that you have. So for example, if you want the copyright symbol in your document, this is the top one here, if you type parentheses C parentheses, it will autocorrect it to the copyright symbol. The same thing for the euro sign. You can see that you just need to type in an E in parentheses and it will give you a euro. Trademark, that's always a good one. So again, if you put TM in brackets, it will give you that trademark symbol, or it will autocorrect to the trademark symbol. And there are so many of these in here that you can use. So you can really go to town. And as you would expect, you can add your own in here. So if you have something that you want to add, you can just type in how you want to type it and then what it's supposed to look like in here. So for example, I might want to say, when I type DA, I want it to be replaced with my full name. And I'm going to add that into my autocorrect options, like so. And there it is at the bottom of the table. So let's see that in action. I'm going to click on OK and OK again. And now if I type my initials, DA, and press the space bar, it replaces it with my full name. So again, taking the time to add in words or phrases that you use often into autocorrect can really help improve your efficiency. One final thing I want to highlight in there, let's jump back in. So let's go to File, Options, and down to Proofing, and jump back into autocorrect. There is an auto format as you type. So again, this is what controls how your text is replaced as you type it. So for example, here it says replace as you type, straight quotes with smart quotes. So there's a very slight difference between those two. But if I type in just a pair of quotes, then it's going to change those to smart quotes. You can see I have things in here which we saw earlier. So ordinals first with superscript. We tried that one earlier. Hyphens with a dash, fractions, so on and so forth. So you really can go in and customize how you want your autocorrect to be set up. And I would suggest you do that because it does save you a lot of time when you're working in your Word documents. I'm going to click OK and come out of here. And that is pretty much it for this module. In the next section, we're going to talk about selecting text in more detail. So please join me for that. Hello again and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. In this module, we're going to talk a little bit more about selecting text, which might sound like something fairly basic, but it's so important that we understand the different ways that we can select text. Again, it will help us with our efficiency if we've got those basics down first. Now, as a general rule, text that is highlighted, and when I say highlighted, I mean if you drag your mouse across it, that means that it's selected. And essentially, if you want to affect it, you've got to select it. So if I wanted to change the color or the size or the font or basically anything related to this text, I need to make sure that I've got it selected before I do it, or Word isn't going to know which text to apply the changes to. So in this module, really what I want to do is just to address the most common ways of selecting text and making different selections in your document. So as I said, the most common way is click and drag. So I'm going to click and drag across. And what you'll see when you click and drag, let me just do that again because I clicked off, is when you click and drag, you will get this mini toolbar pop up. And you can see it there just off to the right-hand side. And this is just a quick sort of toolbar that pops up with some formatting options on it. So you've got your bold, your italics, your font color, font size, so on and so forth. And it's really just a quick way. Word's kind of assumed that you're probably going to want to do something related to the formatting of this text. So instead of having to move all the way up to the ribbon in order to do that, it's just popped up this little mini toolbar so you don't have to go too far in order to make your text bold or italic or whatever you want to do with it. So just be aware that that is going to pop up. If you find that a little bit annoying, then you can turn that off in the backstage area, which I will show you how to do later. Now, to deselect text, all we need to do is to click away. So click anywhere else on the screen and that text is now no longer selected. If you want to select one word, so if I wanted to select the word properties, I can double click on that word and it will select just that word. And if I wanted to select the entire sentence, if I hold down my control key and click anywhere in that sentence, it's going to select the text or highlight just that sentence up until that first full stop. If I want to select the entire line, regardless of if it's a sentence or not, if I hover my mouse over in this white space here and click, it's going to select that whole line. And obviously if I stay clicked in the margin with that arrow and drag down, I can select all of the sentences, or all of the lines I should say. Another way of selecting is if you wanted to select from one point to another. For example, if I click my mouse just before where it says thank you, hold down my shift key and click after the word one, and it will just select that section. And if I want to add to this section, so maybe I think to myself I want to include something else, if I hold down my shift key again and use my arrow keys, I can make some additions to that selection just by working with my arrow key with the shift held down. If I want to select multiple areas which aren't next to each other, so I've got this first sentence selected, what if I wanted to also select the first sentence of the second paragraph? Well, if I hold down my control key, I can then drag and also select that sentence. And I could carry on doing that if I wanted to, like so. So just remember to hold down the control to make multiple selections. Now I'm going to click away to deselect. The final one, as we've mentioned a couple times before, is to select everything in your document, Control A. That will select everything and you can make whatever changes you need from your formatting options on the toolbar. Another thing that you also have is let's not leave out the ribbons here. We've worked mainly with the keyboard and mouse, but if we go up to the home ribbon, again, all the way over on the right hand side, we do have a select option. So again, this will allow me to select all, so that's similar to doing Control A. Or I also have in here a select objects option. Now, this is useful if you have things like shapes on your screen and you want to select all of them. It will allow you to draw kind of like a marquee around them and it will select all of those objects. And we will utilize that a little bit later on in this course. So don't forget that you do have those options up there on the home ribbon as well. So that pretty much wraps it up for different ways that you can select text in your document. In the next section, we're going to move on to taking a look at the good old copy and paste. So please join me for that. Hello again and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. In this module, we're going to start to explore cut, copy and paste, the backbone of the Microsoft applications. Now, these are probably commands that you've used many times before. As I said, they are the same across all of the Microsoft applications. So whether you're working in Word or Excel or PowerPoint, you'll find that the functionality for all three of these is exactly the same, including the keyboard shortcuts. So what I want to do in this module is really just to make sure that you have a good understanding of what cut, copy and paste can do. And if you are familiar with them, you might pick up a couple of other little tips about alternative ways that you can use them. So let's start with discussing cut. Now, the first thing you need to do, there are really 4 steps to each of these. And the first step is making a selection. So for example, I might want to select this first sentence just here. and I might choose to cut it. Now, it's important to note what the difference is between cut and copy. When you cut something in your document, you're essentially deleting it or removing it and then pasting it elsewhere. So it's kind of like doing a move in many ways. So if I was to cut this sentence and then paste it elsewhere, it's going to move it. Whereas with copy, I would highlight the same sentence, but if I was to choose copy and then paste it elsewhere in the document, it's going to make an exact copy. So it won't move it, it will copy it essentially. So that's the difference between cut and copy. So let's start by cutting this line of text out. Now, as with always in Microsoft, there are a few different methods that you can use. You could right-click on your selection, and you'll see from the right-click menu you have a cut option. Alternatively, you could go up to the home ribbon, and in that first group, the clipboard group, you have a cut option in there. Or a third way that you could do it would be to use the keyboard shortcut, and the keyboard shortcut for cut is Control X, and you can see that as I hover my mouse over the cut icon on the home ribbon. So I'm going to click cut. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm just going to put a couple of returns in at the bottom, and I'm now going to paste that sentence that I've cut. So again, I could do it a few ways. I could right-click my mouse and choose one of these paste options. Alternatively, I could jump up to the home ribbon and I could click on the paste button up here, or I could use the keyboard shortcut Control V. Now, I'm somebody who likes to use keyboard shortcuts a lot, but those are a little bit difficult for you guys to see on the screen. So in this instance, I'm going to use the paste button. Now, what you'll see with this paste button is it is divided into two sections. We have the top half, which is currently highlighted in grey. And then if I was to click the lower half, it gives me a few different ways that I could paste that sentence. So I could choose to paste and keep the source formatting. So what that's going to do is wherever I've cut it from, it's going to bring that same formatting across. I could choose to merge the formatting as I paste. So if I was pasting this sentence into another document which had completely different fonts in it, then I could choose to take on the font style or color of the document I'm pasting into by merging the formatting. I could choose to paste it as a picture, which means it will no longer be text, it will be a picture object. Or I could choose to keep text only. So that's really if you want to just keep it just as plain text without any formatting. So you do have a few different options there. There are even more options underneath Paste Special, but again, we'll explore those in a little bit more detail later on. So I just want to do a straight paste, so I'm going to click the top half of this paste button, and that will paste my cutout sentence, and you can see that it's now missing from there. Now I'm just going to undo a couple of times and put that sentence back, so I'm just going to click my undo button on the quick access toolbar, and there we go. I'm going to leave it highlighted, but this time I'm going to do a copy. So remember, the keyboard shortcut is Control C. I'm going to use my button on the home ribbon, and I'm going to click it. I'm going to click in the same place again, so right at the bottom, and I'm going to paste again by clicking my paste button. Now this time you'll see it's done a copy as opposed to a move. And again, what you'll find when you do paste something, you will get this little pop-up appear. And if you click it, it just gives you those paste options that we looked at previously in a little quick drop-down menu in case you want to utilize them. Now, something else I want you to be aware of is the clipboard. Now, it's not particularly obvious how you bring up the clipboard, but if you go up to the home ribbon in this first group where we have clipboard written at the bottom, if you click on the little drop-down arrow, you'll see that you get this little pane open up at the side that says clipboard. And you can see there, it's got on there the last item that I copied. So this thank you for your inquiry piece of text just here. And what happens is every time you cut something or every time you copy something, it actually kind of temporarily saves it to this clipboard. So let me copy a few other things. Let's copy another sentence. And this time I'm going to do the keyboard shortcut Control-C to copy it. And you'll see now that's been stored on the clipboard. I'm going to do another one and Control-C to copy. And I'm just building up a list of all of these on my clipboard. Now, you might think, why is that useful? Well, it's useful if you want to go through and do lots of cutting and lots of copying and then paste them in different orders. So I might go through and think, yep, I want to copy all of those. And then I might want to paste them in the bottom of this document, but not necessarily in the order that I copied them. So I can now go back to my clipboard and I can say, okay, I want to paste this piece of text. So I'm going to click the drop down and select paste, and it pastes that into the document. Now this clipboard will hold up to 24 items, so you really can copy quite a few things and then paste them into the document however you would like. If you want to clear your clipboard, just click on Clear All, and that will get rid of everything on that clipboard. And of course, click the cross to close your clipboard down. So just be aware that that is lurking in the background if you want to utilize it. Just a couple of other ways that you can move things around in your document. If I highlight this whole first paragraph, I could utilize my keyboard and mouse in order to do a cut essentially, or a move. If I hold down my Control key and then click my mouse and drag, I can drop it wherever I like, and you can see I can move it in that way. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a better understanding of the cut, copy and paste commands, and also how you can move things around using your mouse and keyboard, and also how you can store things on the clipboard and paste them wherever you like into your document. In the next section, we're going to be building on that, and we're going to start to get into character formatting options. So please join me for that. Hello again, and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. In this module, we're moving on to take a deeper look at character formatting options. So what I have open on the screen here is a flyer. And at the moment, looking at this flyer, nothing really stands out. All the text is fairly consistent. It's all the same size. It's all the same font. There's no real headings in there. Nothing stands out. So we want to apply some formatting to this just to really make certain things emphasized and to make it a little bit more interesting and easier to read. And you'll find that when you do create a new document in Word, when you start typing, everything's going to be the same. So whichever font you've selected, whichever font size you've selected, until you change that, it's going to look exactly the same. And it's always going to be in black, again, unless you go in and change that font color. And whenever you do start changing the characteristics of text, it's called formatting. So let's start to apply some formatting to this document to make it a little bit more interesting than it currently is. Now, the most obvious thing to start with would be the title up here. So where it says Make Smith Properties Your Realtor, I'm going to highlight my title. And the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the font to make it different from the rest of the document. So up on the home ribbon, in the font group, I have my current font set to Times New Roman. If I click that drop down, I have a whole host of fonts that I can choose to apply to my selected text. Now, it's worth noting that in the later versions of Word, the default font is Calibri, which is this one just here, and that is a really nice font to use. But in this case, I want to make it really stand out and different from the rest. So I'm going to choose something else. So let's choose, let's go down. I'm going to choose that one there, Britannic Bold. And there we go. I'm also then going to make this title a little bit bigger than the rest of the text. So again, moving up to that same font group, you'll see next to the font style, we have the font size. And as I hover over each of these, you can see in a live preview what that's going to look like. So I want to make mine quite dramatic, so I'm going to pick 36. And it's also worth noting, if you look at these font sizes, they do go up in increments. So if I wanted, say, font size 15, I don't have it in that list, but I could just go into this box up here and just manually type it in to get that font size. So don't feel like you can't modify it in that little box. Now I want mine a little bit bigger. I'm going to set it to 36. Next to my font size, I then have two buttons. One is increase font size and the other is decrease font size. And these are actually quite useful if you want to just kind of change the size of your font in increments without having to go into this drop down. So I could, if I wanted to increase the font size by 1 each time, I could go in and do that, or I could choose to decrease it back down. The button we have next to that is to change the case. So again, if I wanted to put my title all into uppercase, I could select that, and there we go. Or I have sentence case, lowercase, I can capitalize each word, or I can toggle the case as well. Now I want this as capitalize each word. And then next in this little group, we have a clear all formatting. So if you decide that you no longer want to have all of the formatting that you've applied, you can just very quickly clear all of it by clicking on that clear all formatting button. The bottom row in this little group, we have bold, which will make your text bold. We have italics, which again will make your text italic if you prefer. And we also have an underline option as well. Now you'll notice the underline has a little drop down and it allows you to choose the underline style. So we have things in there like solid line, double line, dash line, so on and so forth. So you do have some additional options underneath there. Now I don't want underline turned on. I'm just going to turn that back off. You also have a strike through option. So if you're someone who maybe deals with a lot of contracts, then you might find this option very useful. It will just allow you to put a strike through the piece of selected text. And then you have options for subscript and superscript as well. So for words like H2O, things like that, you could think about using these. Next to that, we then have some text effects. So this is really sort of changing the color and the look and feel of the piece of selected text. And there's quite a few options that you have in here. Some of them are a lot nicer than others, but some of these can actually look really effective depending on the type of document that you have. I will say when it comes to applying effects and colors and things like that to your documents, always bear in mind who your audience is. You don't want to make something too jokey looking or too comical or too unprofessional if it's for work purposes. So just bear that in mind. Obviously, if you're doing something like a flyer or a newsletter or something like that, then that will be totally fine. But just bear in mind who your audience is going to be. So I could, if I wanted to, select this fill just here. And I have more options in there for adjusting things like the outline color. I can apply a shadow if I want to, reflection, or a glow. So some options for you to play around with in there. The next button along is a highlight color. So this is probably better further down in this document. If I wanted to go through and maybe highlight something, I could highlight a piece of text. And I could choose to highlight it like so. So this is very similar to having a highlighter pen and just kind of striking through on a piece of paper. And then finally, we have the font color option. So if I wanted to change the color of the font, just select it, and then you can select from the color palette. So lots of different options in that font group. And don't forget, if you click that little drop down, you'll find that you have a few more options underneath here as well. So a lot of these are repeated. So you've got things like font, font style, size, font color, underline style. We've got all of those on the ribbon. We don't have underline color on the ribbon. So if you do select an underline style, you can from here select a color from the color palette for that underline. You have strike through, double strike through, superscript, subscript, small caps, all caps. So a few different things in there which you don't have on the ribbon. You then have an advanced tab as well. So this will allow you to adjust things like the character spacing. So with that, we're talking about the amount of space you have between each letter. So if you want to kind of widen it out, then you can definitely do that. So lots of different options here also under this advanced area. So that's the basics of applying character formatting to selected text. In the next module, we're going to utilize the Format Painter, which is a really efficient way of taking formatting from one piece of text and pasting it across onto something else. So please join me for that. Hello again, this is Deb and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. In this module, we're going to take a look at utilizing the Format Painter tool in order to copy formatting from one piece of text to another. So in the previous module, we were looking at this flyer here, so Smith flyer, and we'd been through and we'd looked at some of the formatting options that you can apply to the text in your document. Now you can see very obviously the title here has some formatting applied to it. And what I want to do is I want to take this formatting and I want to apply it to this Who We Are heading, which is further down in the document. Now, obviously, I could do that by utilizing the same methods I did in the previous module. So I could highlight where it says Who We Are. I could go into my font group and I could apply those different attributes. So I could select the text effects, I could change the font size, font color, so on and so forth. But that's not a particularly efficient way of doing things. A much better way of doing it is to essentially copy the formatting from the title and paste it over the top of the subtitle. And we do that using the Format Painter. So let's take a look at how we would do that. The first thing you need to do is to make your selection. So we want to select the piece of text which has the formatting that we want to copy. I'm then going to go up to the Home ribbon, and in this first group, the Clipboard group, we have an option for Format Painter. I'm going to click it once. And as I hover my mouse back over my text, you can see that my cursor has changed to a small little paintbrush. So that tells me that my Format Painter is now activated. All I need to do now is essentially wipe it over the text where I want to paste that formatting. So I'm just going to click and drag over. And there we go. It's applied that exact same formatting. Now, what about if I wanted to do that for the next heading down, so the one that says Buying a Home? You can see that once I've copied it once, the Format Painter gets deactivated, so my cursor is back to just a regular looking cursor. If I want to do lots of format painting in a document, the secret here is to double click on the Format Painter. So I'm going to select my text, and this time I'm going to double click on Format Painter. I'm going to swipe it over Buying a Home. And if you look now, you can see the Format Painter is still activated because we double clicked, and I can carry on swiping throughout my document. So let's just do these final ones. And there we go. And then to come out of Format Painter, you can either press the Escape key on your keyboard or just click on Format Painter again to take you back to a regular cursor. So that's a much more efficient way of copying formatting across as opposed to manually applying those individual font attributes. So now we have a better understanding of how to apply character formatting. We can move on to the next section, which is working with numbers. So please join me for that.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so that you get notified about similar videos we upload. Now, to get the full Microsoft Word 2019 course, including follow-along exercise files, click over there. And click over there to watch all the videos in this Word 2019 playlist.